Matt Bell, I'm Council Senior Ecologist. We know that bushfire, wildfire, especially high intensity fire, has a very significant negative effect on koalas. They're slow moving, they live in forested environments, and so there was lots of immediate koala loss, we think, as well as the ongoing effects of the fire on the availability of surviving koalas to find food and having to move through the landscape and then being at risk from vehicle strike, dog and other predator attack, that sort of thing. We're standing in the Taree area, the Taree locality and the Kaiwarik area of the Mid-Coast region, and we know that there's a highly significant koala population that occurs between Taree South through Taree, the areas of Mondrook through to Burrell Creek and the Bight. We commissioned a consultant report which examined the population of koalas, and it's a really important koala population of state significance in terms of the density of animals that appear to be present within this locality. There's evidence of good breeding. There's evidence of a high density population, which means quite a considerable number of animals in a relatively small area. So we knew that. We commissioned that study before the wildfires of late 2019, so we haven't come back in to do a systematic analysis of the koalas and what the fires have done in this area. We know that it's important habitat. We know that there are koalas remaining in this landscape, and so it's really important for us to re-examine the population and implement measures which safeguard that population going forward. We're standing at this particular site. This is council-owned and managed land in the Taree area. We came back in here within about a month of the fires, and we had a koala detection dog that was managed by Ryan Tate, and we found evidence of koalas at this location. This particular location was only relatively lightly burnt in comparison to a lot of the high intensity fire which occurred around this area. The detection dog detected koala scats, and we found a lot of evidence of koala scats through this little pocket, a gully refuge of relatively lightly burned habitat, which shows the importance of these refuges within the landscape. Now we've come back here today, a few months down the track, and we've had a quick look for koala scats, and we haven't found any evidence of them. That is of concern, but there's a lot of uncertainty. Have the koalas used this as a refuge, and as the landscape has recovered, have they dispersed back into the more burnt landscapes from here? Was there a whole host of impacts of the fires which led to further injury and death to the koalas that occurred here? We're uncertain, and that's where we need to do more monitoring and research to understand the effects of the fire, and as I say, what measures we can take with the community and with other agencies to safeguard their survival, recover the population in these important landscapes. The conservation of the koala in the landscape setting means that we can't just conserve a patch here and a patch there and expect the koala to survive. The koala as a species has highly complex social dynamics. It relies on movement and dispersal for genetic integrity and the survival of populations. They use the landscape to access food resources in ways that we don't completely understand, but the short of it is that the koalas need a large landscape approach, the protection of important habitats, the reinstatement and protection of critical linkages in a landscape context, and that is the only way that will ensure their long-term survival. The koala is a flagship species. It's an umbrella species. So, and to explain that is the effective conservation of koalas will have significant benefit for a whole host of other species. If if we, with the community and with the other agencies, can conserve koalas in this landscape, there would be flow-on benefits to a range of threatened species and general biodiversity. And that includes species like the brush-tailed phascogale and the mast owl and a host of other species. So by focusing conservation on one species, they act as an umbrella for the conservation of a range of biodiversity.
Hi, my name's Kim Gollan and I'm a contractor to the MidCoast Council. My role is to manage the nurseries and look after the volunteers, give them skills and projects to do, as well as collect seed and get plants back out into the environment. Now this could include koala corridors, coastal revegetation, riparian restoration, some landscaping, some street tree planting, which is always needed. We have embraced giving plants out to private properties in the case where they've been burnt or severely affected by drought. When we lost so much habitat on private land and people knew that the council nursery was here, it became apparent that they were desperate to put back plants back into areas that were starting to erode or to provide future habitat. So we have been able to assist landowners with getting plants back into those areas. The nurseries has to start collecting a lot more seed of plants in areas that have been really damaged, and we need to get that habitat back up and going again. So we're doing a lot of seed collection, especially for koala habitat. Since the fires in November 2019, we've actually given out over 5,000 plants have gone out to public and private areas.
My name's Paul McLeod. I'm president and co-founder of Koalas In Care. My wife Christeen and I set up Koalas In Care 15 years ago, and we've basically have 27 plus years of koala handling and experience behind us at this stage. Fires have been a part of our ecology and occurrence in the area for a long time, but to have fires of the intensity and so widespread was really unusual and uncontrollable for so long. It's just had a devastating effect on the ecology of the area. The Hillville fire, where the base of our population exists, was particularly very badly affected, and many of the areas were actually burnt 3 times during the course of about a 10-day period. So it's had a very severe impact on our core area. Within 6 weeks we had something like 50 plus koalas admitted, and they were coming 4 a day, very badly burnt. We were basically sitting in smoke for weeks and weeks on end, and we're now in a situation where we're seeing koalas that are developed respiratory issues because they're just not made to deal with so much intake of smoke over such an extended period. We're seeing koalas that have come through the fires, their burns have healed, but they're now succumbing to respiratory issues. A koala that's on the ground is more than likely not well, and should the person that comes across it should immediately contact us on our 24-hour rescue line. We've put in place the program of approaching landowners, or sometimes landowners approach us. Say they've got a small area at the back of their property, or somewhere that's not necessarily worthwhile using for grazing or farm activities, and there's several landowners have actually come on board, fenced off those areas and allowing us to revegetate them with the endemic species that were naturally in the area there, and that program's working really well. We are always looking for more landowners, and we're focusing on the Tanoni area. That's Tanoni, Hillville, Bootawar, Mundrook. That's the areas where we need to look at improving the habitat.
Christeen McLeod. I'm a co-founder of Koalas In Care, and I'm the Koala Facility Manager here. Nothing in our wildest dreams could have prepared us for the impact of that fire. All up, 52 koalas were rescued. Unfortunately, 26 of those passed away due to their injuries. 24 have been released and 2 remain in care. Koalas were all highly distressed. You were basically looking at burnt paws, they had burnt bottoms, they had burnt under their arms where they're sitting in the tree, inside their ears, their noses, their faces, their lips. So they were in a pretty horrendous state if they came in alive. I mean, we got many stories of bodies out there. So we lost a lot of koalas, and we'll never know the true impact about that. Every day we were seeing burnt bodies, burnt little paws. They were crying in pain, and we saw many pass away during that stage of the whole horrendous process. But you do that day in and day out, and we did it for 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes bringing in 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 koalas a day, and it does impact on you down the line. Without the community's involvement during the fires, we wouldn't have got as many animals in as that we did, because a lot of it came from people phoning us up. I mean, our phones just ran hot for weeks and weeks, and it was through people on properties and community members that contacted us to telling us there was a koala that needed our help. They either brought it in, or we had to go and rescue the animal out of a tree or something. And without that involvement, I think that we would have lost way more koalas. The community played a big part, and the community can play a ongoing part in planting koala food trees in the area to help with a restoration of the habitat that we have lost, because some areas have been very hard hit with the fire. One of the joeys in pre-release now is Hayes, and she was a little joey that was rescued off the fire ground at Werrell Flat, and her mum wasn't alive. She was lucky enough to be found. She did suffer burns to her face. I'd say that she's probably had a little nose out of mum's pouch, and she was very badly affected by smoke inhalation. I really wasn't hopeful that she was going to survive because she was just limp. So we immediately tried to rehydrate her, and we started to nebulise her. We got her on antibiotics, and she actually picked up quite well over the next few days and went on to keep on improving, and she's now weaned and in pre-release, so she'll be ready to go back out to the wild come spring. Out of the 7 joeys we have in the pre-release area, 6 of those are females and there's 1 male, so there's 6 to kickstart the next generation.